There is absolutely nothing that can spoil a perfectly good weekend like football. Sunny day, Super Bowl weekend, big party later. I get up at 5:45 a.m., eager with anticipation, hoping to see something inspiring, and get served up with 2 straight hours of complete frustration. Very similar kind of performance and hallmarks to other games this season. Are there trends occurring? We shall see. But for this game, I'm telling you, I need a beer, and a proper beer. Not what the Americans are peddling, consuming, and serving up at Super Bowl. A real pale ale from the West Coast, a talisman pale ale. You know, here in Canada, I think we have stronger ginger ales than certain American beers. Let's dissect. Let's pick through the bones of Newcastle 1, Aston Villa 0. Welcome inside my Villa Parlour, and I'm not sure if you're into Super Bowl or not, but just to give you an idea of what I'm expecting at this party I'm going to, a full smoked brisket, a deep-fried turkey, full coho salmon, and tempura battered prawns that go into the oil after the turkey comes out, and, of course, a copious amount of these. And apparently there's even some kind of a game on. Right, here we go with the Holy Trinity, the 3 big issues or moments that defined Newcastle 1, Villa 0, starting with the key statistics from the day, which saw the visitors earn the lion's share of possession, something that tends to happen when you're chasing a game. Somehow they edged it, somehow on the expected goals. Accurate long balls really poor when you consider that Phil Coutinho on his own completed 5 out of 6 long balls, 83% by himself. That means everybody else must have been putrid. Magpies won the duels, 65% of those in the air, and Villa's 63 to 37% possession advantage was not the highest of the season, but top 5. It's never a good thing when your best player over the weekend is the guy you sent on loan to Preston North End and Cameron Archer. I had to watch that game twice at Newcastle, believe me, not fun, to try to pick somebody out. And I'm still coming back to Callum Chambers, probably because he was the freshest guy. And he's the guy who gave away the free kick that ultimately led to the goal. But still, presence-wise, he looked okay. And this is where statistics don't really tell the story, because Douglas Luiz had an 86% passing completion percentage, which is best of anybody on the field. But did it feel to you like Douglas Luiz had an impactful performance in Aston Villa's midfield? It didn't to me. And this is a Newcastle team that had to change its back line before the game. No Lascelles, no Target. And then they had to change it twice in-game. And did it ever feel like Aston Villa were threatening and challenging players who might be uncomfortable out of position or maybe slightly injured? It did not. They did get the Alain Saint-Maximin part right, and that was John McGinn shutting off the supply line to the pacey winger. But great, you managed to neutralize him. What good does that do if you barely threaten your opponent's goal? Honorable mention, and I'm not going to make excuses. The players certainly won't, and neither will Steven Gerrard, but 2 games in 96 hours. Yes, it's better than 2 games in 72 hours, but given the amount of volume, energy, and intensity that had to be spent against Leeds in midweek, you kind of wonder if there was a bit of a hangover effect here. And you look at Leeds, they did have to play 2 games in 72 hours, and look what happened to them at Goodison, losing 3-0 to Everton. So in essence, both Everton and Newcastle had home games on longer rest than Villa and Leeds, who had to play on Wednesday night. Again, not making excuses. It's not the biggest factor, but it definitely is a factor. Honorable mention number 2. Who is the leader in this squad? And this could probably be the number 1 big issue of the season. Is it Emi Martinez, for example? This is an emerging world-class international caliber goalkeeper who's now been signed through 2027. Yes, he can inspire his team with a great save and give them a boost, but he cannot affect change from his position. Tyrone Mings wears the armband, barks orders, directs traffic, makes great blocks, good aerial duelist. But do his teammates have confidence and faith in him week in and week out? I don't know the answer to that. You have to ask them. But moments like this do not inspire confidence in me. And what confounds me about this moment right here is the fact that these two players have played virtually every single game together over the past 2 seasons, and they still allow this to happen. I simply cannot understand how. Is it John McGinn, or as I'm going to start calling him McGinn and out, because sometimes he's McGinn, sometimes he's McGout. Usually on the road, he's McGout. Inconsistency is not a good trait for a leader on the field. How about Coutinho? It's not really in his personality, is it? He's only just arrived. He's the kind of guy that lets his feet do the talking. Is it Emi Buendia, an emotional, passionate guy? I think too emotional. I think he has a difficult time shaking off poor moments in games like missed passes or missed opportunities. So it's a little worrisome when the guy on the field that stood out with the most presence was Callum Chambers. And, maybe that has something to do with the fact that he's also probably the freshest player in that squad because he didn't play the full 90 minutes on Wednesday night. But that's still an issue. And my fear is the true leader of Aston Villa Football Club is standing on the touchline in the technical area. And that is not a good thing because he cannot affect change from there. And that leads me to my final honorable mention, which is Steven Gerrard's body language in this game. He's been in charge of 13 games for Villa all told, and never has he spent as much time rooted to a seat in a dugout as he had in this game against Newcastle. This is late on, 95th minute now, Villa chasing an equalizer the same way Newcastle did against us in this very fixture last year, which they, by the way, went and got. If you're an Aston Villa player and you look over and you see this on the sidelines, what are you thinking? And I'd love to know what's going through his head when he's sitting there like that. Is it, who is my leader who could take a game by the scruff of the neck and impact things? Is he wondering, how do I get my team to stop conceding the first goal? Because in those 13 games, in 8 of them, they've conceded first and they've only earned 5 points. They are doomed when they concede the first goal. Is he wondering, how on earth do I get my team to put out a 90-minute performance just once? Is he thinking, what do I do with John McGinn and Ollie Watkins, who were first on Dean Smith's team sheet back in the day? Now, Ollie Watkins isn't even going 90 minutes when he always used to. He was a machine. And John McGinn, with his inconsistency, well, I have a great example of the two of them as they failed to connect on what was a pretty simple infield ball, not a great infield ball, mind you. But last year, Ollie Watkins, I feel, would have contested that more. Instead, it's almost like he's throwing McGinn under the bus because that's not where you play a dummy in that part of the field. Just like how Ollie Watkins didn't really contest the ball that Cash played hopefully to him against Leeds, which ended up turning into the 3-2 goal. And if it's not going to be those two players, they're spine players for Aston Villa, then who? Ings is not a measurable upgrade. You're giving up something to get something else. And who comes in for McGinn? Sanson? I highly doubt it because I'm hearing the talking up of Tommy O'Reilly and Big Tim. If they're talking about those two players, then Sanson is on the bomb squad and on his way out this summer. Number 3. Set pieces. I would love to see the training ground footage that illustrates why Douglas Luiz continues to be on set piece duty when we have Coutinho and Dean on the park. I mean, he must be hitting some absolute bangers over and around the training ground mannequins for him to keep being in charge of set pieces. And then there's the concession side. This is now the 3rd game in 4 where Villa have conceded from a free kick. And Austin McPhee was brought into this club to help shore up this area. But through 23 games, Villa have now scored as many as they have conceded from set pieces. And I just wonder, because Steven Gerrard inherited Austin McPhee, he didn't bring him in. I wonder how that dynamic is and whether the manager has faith in this particular department. Number 2, the offside decision. Oh my goodness, if there was ever a player this season that needed that goal to go in and count, it was Ollie Watkins, who sniffed it out. He was at the right place at the right time, not at home. He was just a little early, I guess. And how many times in his Aston Villa tenure has Ollie Watkins had a goal chalked off by the VAR laser line? It's incredible. But in this very convoluted law that keeps changing and has the interpretation change all the time, they measured the VAR line from the heel of the Newcastle defender to Ollie Watkins' front foot. That front foot doesn't score the goal, his head does. And I always thought there was this interpretation that you had to measure to a part of the body that you could actually use to score a goal. Well, in this case, it was his head, but who knows? I don't know what offside is anymore. And didn't we go through a phase where if the ball deflected off of a defender, the goal would be ruled onside, but then that made it more confusing? And of course, defenders were saying, well, what are we supposed to do here? Just let everything go by us? I don't even know anymore. But the key is, and has always been, where do they draw the laser line from and to and why? In this particular case, the back heel of the last defender for Newcastle had nothing to do with the goal action, as did the front toe of Ollie Watkins' right boot. That too had nothing to do with the goal, but that's where the line is drawn. If you ask me, we go to games and watch them on TV for goals. We don't watch games for great defending. Favor the attacker and make the law simple. If you're the farthest attacker forward, but any part of you is connected to the last defender when you're looking sideways and square at it, you're onside. The only way you're offside is if there is daylight, clear daylight between you and the final defender. That's way easier to determine for assistant referees, way easier to figure out from the side and for the people watching, because right now it's still a very confusing law. And I know FIFA wants to change it because they're sick of this micromanagement, the time wasted on it, and the millimeters that are involved, millimeters that don't even matter in the action. And the number one big issue or moment that defined Newcastle 1, Villa 0, obviously it was the goal from, of course, a set piece. And Callum Chambers, up until that point, and in my mind, had not put a foot wrong. And perhaps, maybe in that moment, he'd kind of just gotten over the exertion, exhaustion, and the mental part of those first 15 to 20 minutes and left a leg out. And then VAR bailed him out from a penalty decision only to have Trippier predictably score. And have I not said before, as recently as the Leeds show, inside the penalty area, stop trying to block the balls. Defenders are set, goalkeepers are set or have clocked it. When you deflect the ball, you're doomed. And in this case, Emi Buendia, who's in the wall, I don't know why. Is he in the wall or is he a break off from the wall? But he gets his body position all wrong. Instinctively, he wants to try to get something on it. And at that moment, he's doomed his goalkeeper. And I know there's going to be a lot of people writing in the comments, no, you're supposed to try to block the shots. You're supposed to block the shots. Wrong. I've been a goalkeeper my whole life. I've known professional goalkeepers. They tell their defenders all the time, in the box, leave it to me. Outside the box, maybe, because you might have a chance to readjust. But inside, if you're already committed and somebody sticks even the tiniest fraction of their body in the way, it's done. You're doomed. Let it go past. The subcategories don't make for great reading, do they, after a loss? And away from Villa Park, just not looking very good. The Watkins and Ings combined goals just stalled. But look at that, 12 out of 36 away from home. VAR added 1 to each side of the ledger, so it stays at +1 over the season. Austin McPhee's set piece +- now even after concession from a free kick. And versus the bottom 6, Villa now 11 points earned out of a possible 21. So make it 14 straight visits to St. James's Park now without a victory for Aston Villa. And in this very winnable run of fixtures, 1 point out of a possible 6 with Watford coming to Villa Park next weekend. And if you think they're going to just roll over, you haven't been paying attention. Steven Gerrard said after the game, we're going to have to make changes to this team because this performance wasn't good enough. To which I ask, who's coming in? Sanson? He's been binned off so many times. I'm surprised he's not sitting with the supporters. Bit risky too. Changing your team around in a game like that at home? We shall see. But until then, try and stay positive. And as always, up the mighty Villa.